Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week number 8 of our semester. This is about the halfway point. We're about at the midway point here, so moving right along. So, I did get your postings graded up through last week's postings, which were the ones on Alfred Lord Tennyson, and I have to say something in general. Now, some of you did well on both postings, some of you didn't do so well on both postings, but by and far, it looked like most students really must not have understood the question about the late Romantics. What I was asking for there was not for you to go into the biography and the introduction to Romanticism and quote that. What I wanted you to do was use the poems and perhaps Wordsworth's What is a Poet to show a little difference between the two sections of Romanticism, because really the late Romantics, Percy Shelley and Lord Byron, really were kind of expressing some disappointment in the earlier Romantics, and they wanted poetry to do something different than what the Romantics did. So I wanted you to analyze the poems, not analyze the introduction to Romanticism. So the grades on that weren't so good. Now, the grades on Tennyson, on the other hand, were really good. I was really pleased with most of those postings. So, some of you will see a low grade on the late Romantics, but see a high grade on the Tennyson. So that is something that was redeeming. But remember, we are analyzing the works. We are not analyzing the biographies or the history lessons that our textbook has. So concentrate on those works in future postings. Speaking of future postings, we have got a treat for you this week. Both of these poems seem fitting with Halloween coming up soon. So we're going to start with Elizabeth Gaskell's the Old Nurse's Story. Yes, the Old Nurse's Story. This is a really fun ghost story because it's told from the viewpoint of a nanny who now is old and is actually the nanny for the children of the young girl who actually plays a part in this, which is Rosalind. And it's about redemption in some ways. So, or actually it's not so much about redemption as it is about guilt. I'm sorry. Goblin Market's more about redemption. So it's about guilt. And what role does guilt play? Because guilt is going to drive this story. It's going to drive the actions of the old lady. It's going to drive the actions of the ghost that appears in this particular story. It also says something about how ghost stories, anytime we hear a ghost story, it's almost like a history lesson. So-and-so lived in this house, and now his ghost haunts the house because he was murdered in his sleep or something like that. So ghost stories can sometimes be good history lessons as well. And then, of course, there's the quote, the very final quote of our story, which says, "What is done in youth can never be undone in age." And so, again, this is partly about guilt, but partly also about be careful what you do now, because it may haunt you for the rest of your life. I think that the Old Nurse's Story is very fun. I enjoy the heck out of it. That's why I assign it every semester. And I think that you're going to enjoy it too, especially if you like a good ghost story. There's some scary moments in it, but there's no blood and gore or anything like that. It's all just good, clean, frightening fun. Then we got the Christina Rossetti poem Goblin Market. Goblin Market is a story about redemption, and there are 4 questions you can choose from on your discussion. Of course, remember now you've got 3 to choose from in Old Nurse's Story, and you've got 4 to choose from in Goblin Market. You only have to answer 1. Because I only want these postings to be a couple of paragraphs apiece. But one of the parallels you're going to notice is the Garden of Eden story in Genesis. So you may do a little comparison there. Don't tell me these stories. Just go ahead and give me the comparisons. Sisterly love is something that is a subject in this. Redemption, a big theme in this. Because the sister Lizzie is going to almost be a Christ-like figure as she redeems Laura for Laura's sins. And then there's Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market being a message to young girls. Now, you're going to notice that Dante Gabrielle Rossetti actually has a drawing in there in which the two sisters are embraced in what is almost an erotic pose. That's because Dante Gabrielle Rossetti had a dirty mind. But Christina Rossetti wrote this poem mainly as a message to young girls that you need to resist temptation. And there's a climactic scene in there where the sister, Lizzie, in order to redeem her sister Laura, has to resist a whole lot of abuse from the goblins in order to get what's needed to actually get the elixir that's needed to save Laura. So think about these as you read Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market. It's worth a couple of readings before you actually write this posting. So again, it's a 2-posting week. I'm sorry about that, but I couldn't think of any way to combine Gaskell and Rossetti. They had to be done separately. But I think that both these stories are so much fun that you're actually, of course, one's written in prose form and one's written in poetry form, but they are both stories. I think they're so much fun that you're going to forgive me for making you write about 2 of them. So that's all I have for now. I will get to work on grading your postings from last week pretty soon. But, the postings on Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning. But, not everybody's turned those in yet. So I will give you, another day or so to get that done before I start grading them. And enjoy these stories, because this is after all that child labor and after all that hardcore Industrial Revolution stuff, I think these stories will be much more enjoyable to you. And I think these stories are going to be some fun ones before we get into imperialism next week. So have fun. Enjoy the stories. Good luck on the postings. I have a feeling that everybody should do well on these based on the questions I got. And if you have any questions, of course, contact me. And we shall see you next week.